Hello family, and I'm back with another video, and this time I wanted to have another conversation about what you would possibly want to say. Okay, sorry, I'm back. That you would possibly want to have a conversation with a family member or a loved one or someone you just want to talk to about um, their decision to be or stay, um, remain a Jehovah's Witness, or if they're possibly interested in becoming a Jehovah's Witness. I would suggest also that they do some research on the history of Jehovah's Witnesses from the very beginning all the way up till now. A lot has changed, and I wanted to talk about the prediction part, and how the prediction part also ties into financial decisions that they made because of the predictions, and I mean by the governing body. And so I was actually doing some reading because of kind of the times that we're in right now, and trying to understand what we're going through currently in 2025. And I came across this book right here. And it's The Death of Money, The Coming Collapse of the International Monetary System. And it's by James Rickards. And so this book here, is talking about the dollar, just what it says, and how it's going to possibly collapse. And so I didn't know that the dollar had like collapsed completely, other than like the Great Depression time, but I didn't know it had collapsed like 3 separate times. And those 3 separate times were 1914, 1939, and 1971. And the witnesses' prediction of when Armageddon was coming was 1914, 1939, and 1971, right around those exact same dates within that time frame. And I thought, what a coincidence. So the time that our society is going through war, collapse of the dollar, that's when the witnesses are saying Armageddon's here, right? So also during those times with the collapse of the dollar, based on the book, it says that each collapse was followed by 1914, the collapse was precipitated by the First World War and was followed later by alternating episodes of hyperinflation and depression from 1919 to 1922, before regaining stability in the mid-1920s, with a highly flawed gold standard that contributed to a new collapse in the 1930s. The Second World War caused the 1939 collapse. Now, mind you, the witnesses said we were going to have Armageddon was coming then too. And stability was restored with the Bretton Woods system created in 1944. The 1971 collapse was precipitated by Nixon's abandonment of gold convertibility to the dollar. Although this denouement had been years in the making, and it was followed by confusion, culminating in the near-dollar collapse in 1978. So those dates actually coincide with the witnesses' prediction of Armageddon. Armageddon, the world is over. So I was just wondering, are they saying that now? Because we're actually going through something that could possibly happen with that too, the inflation, the collapsing of the dollar, and they're speaking of, possibly having another world war. So I'm saying all this to say that what are the witnesses thinking now? Like, what's the prediction now? Like, are they saying Armageddon's coming like they did before? I know they said they wouldn't make no more predictions or anything like that. But everything is like, it's the same situation as before. They also, during those times, in 1929, during the second prediction, they still bought land, they still bought a mansion, they still bought property. 1932, after they were delivering talks and telling everyone to go out and service and to increase their hours and to become pioneers so they can bring more people into the organization. But they were still buying property. They didn't stop buying property. They felt the end was coming, but yet they were buying property. And yet they were telling brothers and sisters that they didn't need to have material things, not to be materialistic, because the end is coming. Yet they, as an organization, were still buying property during these times that everything was supposed to be ending. And I thought that didn't make sense to me at all. But I also thought it was really a coincidence that they were making predictions during the same time that the government was making financial predictions, or the government was going through financial hardships. Witnesses weren't supposed to have anything to do with anything political, like nothing political. But yet, the witnesses then, the brothers then, were literally making financial decisions and telling their members to make financial decisions based on what the economy was going through. Because their dates completely line up with the United States of America's economy. So to say that witnesses weren't supposed to pay attention to politics, not invest in anything, not to have purchase anything, just to only have the bare minimum and wait on Armageddon to postpone everything. Yet they were the ones predicting Armageddon, and yet they were still buying just in case. And they weren't buying little properties. They bought some land out in California. They bought a mansion and some land. I have notes over on my screen. Out in California. 1929, the Watchtower Society bought a piece of land in San Diego, California, where a Spanish mansion was built and named Beth Sarim, House of the Princess. They named it the House of the Princess. So in 1932, he was still delivering talks about the nearness of the kingdom. Yet, he said it was coming in 1939. So he was constantly preaching it. But they went ahead and bought land anyway. Then they also had land and sold that land in 1948. Sorry. All right, I'm sorry, I had to pause for a second. And I looked up another article at jw.org, and it's called A Farm That Feeds Millions. So they were predicting that the world was coming to an end, and they were telling brothers and sisters, don't buy anything, don't own anything, just wait until, anything lavish, live a modest life. Wait on your promise for paradise. Yet the society themselves was buying land. This article here says, 40 years ago, on February 2nd, 1973, new presses were set up at the Waukee, New York, USA to produce Watchtower and Awake magazines. 10 years earlier, 1963, Jehovah's Witnesses had purchased property there for farming to supply food for personnel at the headquarters in Brooklyn, New York. But now the property would also be used to produce a different kind of food, spiritual food. So initially, a video I had done before, that's where they had Bethelite housing for the people who worked at the Watchtower Society, and they had a full-on farm with cattle and dairy and wheat and fruit and vegetables and a cannery and everything. So they're telling all the brothers and sisters, all the witnesses, all the members, the end is coming, yet they're buying land and farming, agricultural land, property, homes, equipment, state-of-the-art equipment. This particular article talks about how they had state-of-the-art technology for the 1970s. So they were buying the best of the best, but yet the end is coming. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all that if the end is coming, why would the society spend this much money and the end is coming? And they have, as I stated in my last article, they basically created their own paradise for themselves and everybody else was just supposed to make do until the end comes. And then also, as far as everybody having to make do, witnesses did not have and do not have a charity. They don't have anything set up to help their members if they are going through a financial difficulty or if they're just hungry or need clothing or anything like that. They don't have that and don't feel like they should. They've actually said that they don't and will not. And I actually found that to be hypocritical because in scripture it states something completely different. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back again. And by no means am I, how do I want to say it? Promoting religion in any way. I'm just kind of using scripture to make my point as far as witnesses not following their own word. So this is Matthew 25, starting at 34. And this is the separating of the sheep from the goat. And so I'll just read it. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who have been blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the founding of the world. For I became hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you received me hospitably. Naked, and you clothed me. I fell sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous one will answer him with the words, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and receive you hospitably, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" In reply, the king will say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Go away from me, you who have been cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I became hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. And I was thirsty, but you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, but you did not receive me hospitably. Naked, but you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, but you did not look after me." Then they too will answer with the words, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it for one of these least ones, you did not do it to me." These will depart into everlasting cutoff, but the righteous ones into everlasting life. So with that to me right there simply states that you should help those who are less fortunate, that you should do for those who are less fortunate. You should help those who are hungry, help those who need clothes, help those who need shelter, help those who are sick. And yet, for some reason, the witnesses don't feel they should abide by these scriptures here, separating the goat for the sheep. I did notice reading the article, they definitely applied that to field service. Like, we're going out in field service, and if they want to listen, then they're a sheep, and if they don't want to listen, they're a goat. But they didn't take it, that was their own interpretation, thought for thought, that they didn't take it scripture to scripture, word from word, that literally you should do for. And it says to do for your own, and yet they don't do for their own members at all. No charity in any way, shape, or form. So that was my thought on this, and also wondering, what witnesses are thinking nowadays, and for those who are actually have family members and or people that they're talking to about it, how do they feel about what we're going through with the economy right now? I know they said they're not going to make any more predictions because all their predictions have failed, but yet are they speaking to their members about what's going on? And are they telling them to prepare, or are they telling them just to wait on paradise? Well, that's all that I have to say for now, and I want to say thank you for listening, and I'll be back with another video.